Hello and welcome back to the Ask an Introvert podcast. I'm Jennifer Ho, your host and life coach for introverts, and I help those who feel quieted in this world develop self-leadership to take up space exactly as you are to live your dream life. This episode is part of a mini series called Catching Up in Public, where I'll be reflecting on pivotal moments of my life in 2024. Today, we're really diving into the job search of May 2024. This has been what people in all areas of my life have been the most curious about, and that has made me more scared to do this episode. It did make me want to avoid it more, but here I am now. I've decided that there's nothing I can do to disappoint you. If you want to know more, you can ask me for more details. Okay, but I am still going to start with a disclaimer. Most of this is not going to be tactical advice because me getting serious about my job search had very little to do with tactics and a lot to do with my mindset and energy. And in this case, talking about energy, I mean my presence and how I show up, not energy as in source of power or the capacity to do things. Some background for you if you've never heard me talk about a 9 to 5 or if you're new here. Throughout my entire time as a life coach, I've always had a full-time role. I've been a marketing professional for 10 years and I will continue to maintain my career until the day I decide not to. Right now, I'm living out the decision of doing both, running a business and having a job. So, the questions about the job search have been sourced from conversations I've had with clients, friends, and family in real life. This is me putting my decision to have advice column vibes on this podcast into action. So, we'll start with the most common question. So, Jennifer, I thought you were fine and that you'd keep your job comfortable and boring so that you could focus on your business. What changed that made you decide to move jobs? Well, earlier this year, I took two back-to-back vacations to Asia, one in April and one in May. And when I came back to my job, things felt off, like really off. It wasn't that regular, I need a vacation after my vacation slump. It was much more difficult to cope with and handle. It was more like when I was working the job, I was completely devoid of joy. And no matter what the problem was, I no longer believed that there would be any reasonable or favorable solutions that the company could provide. There were also changes at the company that really exacerbated the decisions are being made about me in rooms I'm not in, and I don't have any say or control over it. That type of awareness. And it really exacerbated that, which then exacerbated all the anxiety that comes with it. So, external circumstances did influence my decision, but for me to be serious, it really had to be an internal change because things had been bad before too. And not only in this job, but the job before that. And I could still find myself doing the job and having fun at the job. And things have been bad before too, and I would be able to do various things like returning to the office once a week, even though we could work remote just fine, and having to train new team members over and over again because there was consistent turnover. I found some fun and joy in that too, but this time I was just done. So, the next question. You tell me a lot about how I should always keep my eyes open for new opportunities and stay informed about my position in the job market. Had you been keeping up with all of that too? Yes. So every 3 to 6 months, I do make an effort to update my resume, research jobs to see what companies are looking for, as well as what they're paying. And then I actually submit applications too. If I land an interview for something I have interest in, I take it. But in the past 2 years, I actually didn't land any interviews when I went through these cycles of updating my resume and applying. I felt that it was reflective of the job market. And although it initially hurt my confidence, by doing it anyway, I gained confidence in other ways. Like I was really resilient. And I also had so much more knowledge than my colleagues and other people that I knew. Having the knowledge of various job descriptions and the market rate for your role, this information, you can use it to advocate for yourself. I was confident when I would ask for raises or promotions at the company that I was at. And I think all of this definitely made my official job search easier in that I didn't have to scramble to put together my resume or my work samples. I also wasn't worried about how to present myself, and I wasn't completely clueless about what companies were looking for and how to position myself in applications and interviews. With that said, if you haven't done any of this, then break the steps down and start on something. If you go back to episode 20 and you hear me list out my SOPs for my podcast, like I have very doable steps and I just take it one at a time. And any step that is overwhelming, I just take it off the list for the moment. If you give yourself an overwhelming list, you're just going to avoid it more. So if you haven't updated your resume in a while, then if you want to break that into a smaller step, just look at how you would describe what you've been doing in your current job before you take any other advice about like, oh, you have to use these verbs or you have to frame it as accomplishments. First, just do the first draft. Be very, very clear on what you do currently. Start there. Now, of course, what changes in an official job search and just assessing my stance in the market when I'm have the full-on intention of leaving, there's definitely more pressure. But I think because I made it light and fun before, I also knew how to approach at least the steps of the job search with a lot less stress. So the third question that I heard often, or I'm still hearing, since you're always kind of looking, did you know what you're looking for next? What made this job search serious or official? Okay, so it's really my mindset and intention. I knew I was leaving and that I wanted to leave. And once I made the decision, the first thing I did was write my resignation note. Don't freak out. I did not submit it, I only wrote it. And it may not be a needle moving step in the process of job searching, but it helped me take myself and my decision seriously. Like, if all you're working on is refining your resignation letter when you can't even submit it yet, then you're definitely wasting time. But I just wrote it in 20 minutes. And after that, I envisioned what it would feel like if I actually put that into Outlook and hit send on that email to my boss. And I realized I was so ready for it. Now, to answer the part about knowing what I was looking for next, another thing that staying open along the way helps is you will have a good sense of what you want. I knew that I wanted a similar role, but in an entirely different company culture. Like, I really enjoyed what I was doing. So if I could take that and plop it into a different culture, that definitely lit me up. But I knew that the functions alone wasn't going to cut it. The environment is really what had to change. And visualizations definitely are more helpful if they're more specific. So to get more specific, I visualize what would actually happen next. When I'm accepting a new job offer, what does that offer look like? And how does it make me feel? Starting the new job, what does that look like? And how does it make me feel? Working with my new team, what does that look like? And how does that feel? Notice I really dialed in on the reality of what I wanted instead of looking back and saying, oh, I hate these things. I want to avoid these things. This framing of your perspective is really important because the goal is to leave those things behind. So thinking about them, even in the negative of not having them, is actually making them very real and present in your mind. It also doesn't really feel very good. It feels heavy to think about all the things you don't want and all the things you're worried you might face again. So as I visualized all of the things I wanted, I learned. So with my offer, the offer that I'm going to accept is a fully remote role with at least a 10% pay increase. It matches my current vacation time or has more. It has more sick time and has comparable retirement, health, dental, and vision benefits. And that makes me feel secure in the world. In my new job on my very first day, I will be onboarded with a proper checklist and document. I will get to lead a broad range of marketing initiatives and projects, allowing me to be involved cross functionally in the organization. And this will make me feel connected and included. As for my team members recognize that we're all in it together to see through projects. And there's not a, well, how come you didn't do this? Or I shouldn't be doing that. They're fun to work with. They embrace humor to lift each other up. They share thoughtful feedback and they hear me out without taking things personally. They see me as their team member. They see me as someone who's going to help them get the project done. They see that we have shared goals. And this makes me feel like I belong. And I made sure to write all of this down in present tense, as if it was already true. I guess you could call it Delulu, but I knew it was possible because I could see it so clearly. By preparing my mindset, I naturally defined the parameters for my next job. That said, I also had to stay open. For instance, if a job description lit me up, I needed to apply. Within reason, of course. Like, I wouldn't put effort into a role that sounds good, but the company's only offering half the salary I want. I really chose to focus on what lit me up, not what made me go, ugh. But if a job is slightly under your desired salary by just a bit, you don't have to open a whole door of effort for that potential role. You can just open a window, learn more. You never know. If you're the perfect person for it and they only have to pay a little bit more to meet your needs, they might go for it. I would rather, in a healthy workspace, I would definitely rather do that than go with somebody who I'm unsure about just because of the money. Yeah. So those were the rules and parameters I set. Now on to the next question, number 4. When I think of job searching, I just don't think I have what it takes as an introvert. The job market's very tough right now. It's like you have to know somebody to get a job, and you definitely have to be good at the interview. I'm not good at the interview, and I'm too introverted to know people. How do you maintain your energy through all the social parts of the process? Okay, first off, what do you mean you don't have what it takes? Do workplaces not need introverts? I want you to start looking at how your natural personality and tendencies can be a competitive advantage for you. You have to build yourself up for this process. If I didn't build myself up in my job search, I don't think I would have been successful. Now, let's look at the bit about having to know somebody to get a job. That's not true. You don't have to know somebody, but it can be helpful to use your network. The thing is, people give all sorts of advice, and all advice is either based on their own personal experiences or based on what they've learned from other people's experiences. And we know how vastly different all of that can be for people. Like how extroverts experience the world and how introverts experience the world are different. And we can break that down even further, like how socially awkward introverts experience networking and how conversational introverts experience networking will also be different. What's going to work for you? If you're dead set on networking not working for you, then take it off the table. Don't even worry about it. Don't complain about it. Don't use it as an excuse. And then interviewing. This one you do have to worry about, but you don't have to worry about it until you actually have an interview. When you're applying to jobs, where your energy is going, what you can reasonably worry about is the act of applying to jobs. You have to worry about getting the interview before worrying about how you're going to interview. I promise you, that's just the order of things. Once you land the interview, you're allowed to obsess. You can make plans to ensure you show up well in those interviews in every possible way. But there's no point in preparing for the interview if you don't have one yet. Now, if you do, some of the tactical things I did were I blocked out time before and after the interviews so that I wouldn't feel rushed. It gave me space to recharge and to be flexible to have a longer conversation in case it does go over. And as for connecting with my network, a reminder I would emphasize for you is that people are happy to help. And it doesn't matter the size of your network or when the last time you talked to someone was. The people who are happy to help are also happy to hear from you. Whether you want to let them know you're looking for a new role or you would love for them to be a reference, um, it's not like you have to go on a tour of taking them out to lunch and coffee dates and roll out the social red carpet for these people. They're just happy to hear from you. It's as simple as sending a short note. If it really bothers you that you haven't reached out in a long time, then just reach out. Be genuinely curious about how they're doing. Focus on that. Make your ask later. I can tell you for sure, like, there are people that I never talk to, but I love hearing from them. Especially, like if you didn't have a good relationship with someone, don't reach out to that person. But if you had a good relationship with somebody and you met them in a professional setting, I don't think the expectation is you have to keep up all the time. Like my former bosses are happy to hear from me. Mentors who were really important in a certain chapter of my career, but aren't the ones who can help me right now, they're still happy to hear about how I'm doing. And they're always rooting for me to get to the next level and they're celebrating my successes. And I also love doing that for people. And I think you do too. So think about like what a gift it would be for people to hear from you. Okay, question 5. How did you approach communicating your needs and preferences during the job interviews? Did you negotiate your offer? Yeah, I negotiated my offer. And during interviews, I always keep in mind that I'm also interviewing them. It's not just the company telling me what they're looking for, it's also me telling them what I'm looking for. Rather than focusing on saying the right thing, I think about how I can only do the right thing for myself. If I ask something and they get offended, I did the right thing by me because I found out they were difficult. If I stumble over my words and that's what they say they have doubts about, and then they decide I can't do the job because of that, I did the right thing by me because I found out they're quick to judge and they don't really make sense. That doesn't mean that I won't work on getting better about how I might phrase a question or how I might improve my speaking. The point is, I'm doing the right thing for myself by putting myself into a position to practice, by putting myself into the game, by allowing myself curiosity and grace throughout. Now, on negotiating my offer, I once heard a keynote by Cindy Gallup, aka the Michael Bay of business. And while it was full of gems, one line in particular stuck with me. When it comes to negotiating, she said, say the highest number you can without laughing. So that's what I did. On the phone, when I picked up and I said, hello, this is Jennifer. And they're like, hey, Jennifer, this is blah, 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 blah. I wanted to let you know that you got the job. We'd love to hire you on with a salary of a number that Jennifer could be happy with. And then I asked, any chance you can go up to the highest number I could say without laughing? And then I shut up. And then they said, that would be something I have to discuss with the director. Let me get back to you. And I said, okay, let me know when you find out. Within the hour, they called back and offered me the highest number I could say without laughing. Best case scenario. I could have accepted the offer at the number that I would be happy with, but I got an even better number. This is why you negotiate. By the way, I work with my clients on navigating difficult conversations like negotiations and job interviews. We even practice with role playing, which helps to reveal more specifically where you get stuck so that we can coach on it and to normalize the conversation for you. If you want to explore what one-on-one coaching looks like for you and how you can take root into self-leadership, book a complimentary discovery call with me today. The discovery call is focused on you and is for you. No matter what you decide, I'll honor your decision, and you'll at least walk away having decided if you'll work with me or not. You get to leave lighter than before. The link to book is in the show notes. Okay, last question. Jennifer, you're super excited about all this, and I love it. But now, can you tell me about the actual job search? Like, how did you get a new job in a week? All right, story time. So, after I wrote the resignation note, yeah, that was a Tuesday night. On the Wednesday night after, I needed to get coached on seeing this as a decision that would help me in business, not distract me. So my brilliant business coach helped me reinforce this decision, and she also helped me confirm some of those parameters. It was really clear to me that, yeah, this job change would actually help me in business, not distract me. So I immediately went on some job boards and I found two remote marketing roles that lit me up. One of them hit all the parameters and would be a different industry than my current company, but it was interesting for sure. And then the second one was the same industry, but the salary was a bit low, and I was concerned that having something in common would be detrimental for me. And so I wasn't really sure, like go for the industry change or stay in the same industry. And I could sense that my brain was about to go on this impending spiral of doom. So I had to get out of my head quick. I sent the two descriptions off to a friend and they said I should apply to both. And I agreed. So at that point, I accepted that as the micro decision and I didn't let myself think anymore. I just worked on the applications. That was a Wednesday night. And on Thursday night, I finished the materials for the second role, the same industry role. And so I sent it off and called it a night. And I looked forward to completing the other application the next day. Well, Friday morning, I get a request for an interview, and then we schedule it for Monday. So I made a very reasonable change of plans. Instead of focusing on more applications, I focus on interview prep because now I had an actual interview to worry about. Before I knew it, Monday came around, and one of the really good signs was that it was a 30-minute interview, but we talked for over an hour, and I was having fun. I had fun talking for over an hour. I left that call feeling like they loved me, and I was very impressed with them. I sent a thank you note a couple of hours later when I had the chance to, and then they immediately got back and invited me to meet the team either on Tuesday or Wednesday. And since I had to work in the office and I was driving to LA on Tuesday, I scheduled it for Wednesday. But I really wish I could have been more efficient with it. Regardless, I was also impressed by the efficiency of this company. And so I said, okay, Wednesday works for me. And I prayed that it would be Wednesday morning, but it only worked for the team as Wednesday afternoon. So, Tuesday I was in the office. I drove to LA, so I was pretty occupied. But all of Wednesday, in the back of my head, I was like, I wonder how many people will be on the call. I should have asked this earlier. It's too late now. What will they ask me? What will I ask them? What should I prepare? How did these even work? What if they hate me? And even after I wrote some things down on paper and typed into a document so that I can easily reference it during the Zoom call, this spiral would repeat in my brain. And I started to feel really, really, really nervous. But then I remembered like the experience in my body when I'm nervous is very similar to being excited. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what if I'm excited instead of nervous? And then my brain was more like, oh, how amazing is it that we really want this? Like, this was gonna be a practice application, a practice interview, but we actually want this. How cool is it that this company exists? How cool is it that this role exists? How cool is it that the timing is just so good? Everything is working. And this really kept my mood and my energy up. And when it came around to the team interview, I loved them. And I hope they loved me too. We wrapped up the conversation talking about pets and kids and plants, and it was fun. But honestly, in this setting, I wasn't as confident as the initial interview. Like being judged on my ability to do the job, that was easy for me to prove. But, if people don't like you, they just don't like you. But after I sent them my references, like almost immediately, my references reached out to me and said they were contacted. And so I was like, They must be excited about me too. I had three references and I knew the last reference call would be on Friday morning. So it's Wednesday evening when my references were contacted for times that they're available. And so two of them had calls on Thursday and one on Friday. So I had to wait at least 2 days before hearing back. Now, at this point, I really wanted to finish up the other application because I was like, well, I need something else to root for myself if this doesn't work out. But I had no energy for it because literally the next day on Thursday, I went to Canva Create. That conference was a welcome distraction, but in the end, the fact that I was waiting for an offer for this role distracted me from Canva Create. I still had a blast though, but throughout that day, I was just waiting for updates from my two references who had calls that day. I was so curious to hear their impression of the company too. Like I wanted a temperature check. To my relief, they're also impressed, and this made me want the role even more. Oh man, now that I think about it, managing all of these feelings was a much bigger deal than managing my social energy. Like these big feelings were draining more. Anyway, on Friday, my final reference texts me that her call's done, and within the hour, I got a call for the offer. And you already know how that went. Yeah, so I negotiated. They came back with what I wanted. I clarified details. We settled on a start date. And then that was it. I signed the offer that day, and that's how I landed a new job in a week. I can't tell you tactically how to do that. It depends on what exists out in the world, but I can tell you that it's possible for things to happen quickly. And it's definitely possible for you to make things lighter and easier on yourself if you focus on being in the right energy, an energy that you actually want to be in. If my job search had ended up being longer or if it was still in the works, I really enjoyed the way I approached everything. And I think of all the times that I went into an official job search, the way I started this one was the best I ever felt. Despite being really down in my role at the time, despite the tough job market, despite wanting better, I felt really light through it all. And I am really confident that if this continued, that I would find ways to create the joy and the fun and the lightness and the ease in it because I'm good at that. And you can be too. Okay, that's it for today. If you have something you want to ask me and get my thoughts on through the podcast, send me a DM on Instagram or submit it anonymously at byjenniferho.com/askanintrovert. All links are in the show notes. I will be back in a week or less. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss the next episode. I can't wait to talk to you then. Bye.